Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a Thursday afternoon edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Divular, of course.
Hello. You got me?
We should be good to go. Yeah, I got you. No, I just had to adjust the setting on my end because my child is napping, so we shouldn't have any screaming for the next couple hours. If he wakes up, I'll change it. That's how you play it around here. So always touch and go around here. Hey, nice to see everybody here. 422 strong in the YouTube chat. Start things off. 249 strong over on Rumble. We also have a few people filing into our members-only room, which is open today. We got 5 in there already. So it is post-game day today. So what we are doing is we're doing the first portion of the show here on the public airwaves on YouTube and Rumble. Patreon members, paid Substackers, and paid Locals members have a link that was emailed to you this morning for the private stream, which will continue on into bonus segments and then a call-in Q&A. So we will be switching over for patrons only. So if you want to access the full show today, go to patreon.com/do dissidents and tune in for the bonus segments plus a call-in Q&A. Patreon.com/do dissidents. If you go there and sign up now, it's not too late. You'll see the most recent post is the one with the link to the post game. What do we got on the post game today? We have Taylor Lorenz has a scoop, oddly enough, which is a sentence that we both never thought we would say. Taylor Lorenz actually has a scoop worth covering. And then we got a fun one. We got a fun one over there. We got Charlie Kirk's response to the Taylor Swift engagement.
Taylor Lorenz has her own theme on the soundboard, but I mean, we haven't used it in like a year.
That's right. We have not used that in a long time. So we got that for the patrons. We also have Charlie Kirk's take on Taylor Swift's engagement, which that's fun. That's fun, funny stuff for the patrons. So, yes, we do have bonus stuff for you today. So sign up now. Help support the show. Unlock that bonus content. It's all about the bonus content, right? But, yeah, we got plenty to take care of. Thanks for accommodating the time change. One note. Okay, so because our film schedule in St. Louis got totally thrown into chaos because of everything that went on there, we are not going to be able to do a movie club this week. So what we will do is we will do 2 movie clubs in September. We were planning on doing one over the weekend because we were planning on having the film wrapped by now. But all the shooting from last week got pushed into this week, and it's just not really doable because of all the prep work necessary in organizing these shoots. So we will have 2 in September. So the week Russ gets back, we'll do one, and then we'll do one like we always do at the end of the month. So we apologize for that. It was really beyond our control. We have to get these filming dates locked in and taken care of. So that's the way that's going to go. But we do have the post game today.
I am saying that we really celebrate spooky season and we just do horror movies up through Halloween.
Yeah, that's fun.
Horror and sci-fi. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea.
Nice
I'm down for that.
autumnal. And
Sort of
actually,
an
there's
extended fall, an extended Halloween season.
an extended Halloween. There's a few movies that have a lot of political kind of overtones that are socioculturally interesting that are among my favorites. So that'll give us an opportunity to show those.
There you go. There you go. So it'll all work out in the end. Someone in the Rumble chat says someone check on Gilgamesh. I hope Gilgamesh is calling in today. It's Gilgamesh's birthday today. I didn't forget.
Oh, it's
Gilgamesh's,
today? Yeah.
Yes, it's Gilgamesh's birthday today. So, yeah, I did not forget. So hopefully he calls in and we could wish him a happy birthday on the patron side of things.
Somebody said do Caligula.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would get us kicked off even Rumble.
Even Rumble.
If we
right,
were
exactly.
to do even in a private thing.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I want to do Phantom of the Paradise. I want to do Shock Treatment, the little scene sequel to Rocky Horror that only gets more prophetic every single year. Like that movie completely predicted reality television and a lot of the banality of the culture we live in today. Like that movie just looks better and better as time goes on.
There you go. So that's a possibility. Yeah. So these are options. So we will have some fun with that in September and obviously into October as well. But we got 618 now filing in on YouTube, 294 over on Rumble. Thanks everybody very much for being here. Let's get started, shall we? All right. So, we got some fun stuff on the show today. But this is kind of a disturbing one to start things off. But this one caught my eye because, Chris Hedges, right after the war in Ukraine started, he says, to champion war is to, champion true horror. War, he says, is, maggots eating the eyes of children. It's really hell. It's horrible. And no story, I think, encapsulates that better than this one. So Timothy Molyavanov, who I thought was a Russian account, posting this as an indictment of Ukraine. But it turns out, no, this is actually a pro-Ukraine account, as we'll see later.
Oh, wow.
Posting as a flex, 70,000 women now serve in Ukraine's army, a 20% rise since 2022. Some fight while pregnant, crouching in trenches and living under bombardment. Many say they serve for their children's future and plan to return to duty even after giving birth. That's right. And the source for that Twitter thread, which we'll get a little more into later, is this article in the New York Times, Expecting on the Front Lines, Motherhood in Ukraine's Military. That's right. Ukraine's military is finding it hard to recruit young men as the war with Russia grinds on. But women, all volunteers, are a bright spot. The number of women serving has grown more than 20% to about 70,000 since Russia's invasion in 2022. Those who become pregnant often serve in tough conditions under relentless shelling, living without heat in the winter, or running water and proper toilets. It's terrifying. Every single day, said Nadia, 25, who served as a frontline radio operator until she was 8.5 months pregnant. You wake up wondering if everything is okay, if everyone is still alive, she said, describing how every morning she would brush plaster off her bed that had fallen from the ceiling after a night of explosions. Pregnancy, she said, made it even more difficult. The clinic where she would get ultrasounds closed. So did many nearby hospitals. You're constantly thinking about your child's well-being, said Nadia, who gave birth to a boy, Yaroslav, in February. It was nonstop stress every day, combined with constant physical activity. While the U.S. Army and many other militaries remove pregnant soldiers from combat zones, Ukrainian women usually serve until their 7th month, and that is in a military that doctors and soldiers say is ill-equipped to support them. From uniforms that don't fit pregnant women to a lack of prenatal care and nurseries amid the costs and challenges of fighting the war. Despite the hardships, many pregnant soldiers say they understand the military has more pressing priorities and that they are motivated to serve for the future of Ukraine and their children. Our children are the future of this country, said Olia, 39, a combat medic in eastern Ukraine who gave birth to a girl in May. We have to protect our children, and we have to liberate the country for their future. Once they gave birth, women also face wrenching decisions about how long to stay home with their babies or whether to return to a military that desperately needs them. Nadia said that after her baby was born, she was allowed 126 days of paid leave if she wanted to return to the front. Otherwise, she could take off 3 years unpaid. How can I leave him? She said she wondered before deciding to take the 3 years with the intention of returning to service after that. Valentina cut short her maternity leave to return to service. Olia, the senior combat medic in eastern Ukraine, said she was surprised to find out she was pregnant last September. I did not plan to get pregnant. When I went to war, I wanted to fight until victory, she said. So here she is. And if you notice, her pants don't button all the way because they don't have uniforms that can accommodate pregnant women. So you have this woman on the front lines with clothes that don't even fit. Women in combat roles with clothes that don't even fit. And even if they're not in combat roles, they're still in danger. They're still in grave danger up till 7 months pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant. And then after giving birth, they're compelled to come back as soon as possible. I mean, it's absolute hell on earth. That's what this country has turned into over the course of this war. So whenever you hear about, Ukraine bravely fighting for their future, look, I'm not going to take away from the bravery of these women, okay? But you have to ask, what does it say about the Ukrainian government? What does it say about NATO and the West that we are pushing this and pushing this and pushing this beyond any chance of victory on the battlefield? It's not enough a generation of men have been killed. Now you're going to put pregnant women and recently postnatal women in battle? And then what's going to happen to the kids when they die, which they're going to? I mean, they call this a meat grinder for a reason. The average life expectancy in the front lines of the Ukraine war, at one point, I don't know how up-to-date this stat is, I don't have any reason to believe it's changed, was 14 minutes. It was 14
You're kidding
minutes.
me.
So what's
really?
going to happen?
I never really. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is going to happen? I mean, the death toll of this is just astounding. And now you have pregnant women and new mothers joining the fight. She initially kept her pregnancy a secret, fearful she might get reassigned. But when bleeding landed her in the hospital for a week in December, Olia had to inform her commander. Doctors advised her to take it easy, according to Olia. She said that was hard to do as she was the only medic in her company and the guys still need medical help. Her commander made some adjustments and Olia stopped going into combat positions. Still, war was all around her for the duration of her pregnancy. Olia said she talked to her unborn baby to tell her what was going on around them and to tell her that she loved her, that they were going to be okay, and that they were doing an important task. She bristled at the suggestion that some might question her priorities. I'm ready to assume responsibility that I am near the combat zone with my child. I do everything to protect her, Olia said. I have to stay and help here. In late May, she gave birth to her baby girl, Irina. While Olia has officially quit the military, she plans to re-enlist in a year or so. We have very few people left with the necessary level of experience and professionalism, she said. And this is a long game, so we are needed. Okay, so back to this guy. Once again, I thought that this was tweeted out because this tweet went semi-viral, over 700,000 views. I assume that this was an expose on the state of the Ukrainian military, and look how horrible this is, look how urgently this war needs to end, because now not only are they going through men, now they're pulling pregnant women and new moms into battle. But no, apparently, because, judging by a lot of the replies, which we'll read in a moment, some of them, this seemed to be a Ukraine hawk account. So yes, Timothy Milavinov is a Ukrainian economist and educator, passionately leads the Kiev School of Economics while advocating for Ukraine's resilience and anti-corruption reforms against Russian aggression. Milavinov exposes Russian drone attacks on Ukrainian civilians and Trump's tariff war on India over Russian oil. The ex-community engages actively, praising his insights on Ukraine's resilience, while some criticize his views as propaganda. So here's some responses. When a nation shovels pregnant women into a trench, the war isn't just lost, it's cursed. That isn't valor, it's the sound of civilization gnawing off its own future. Yes, that is very well put. Lay down the arms, confess the madness, and spare the unborn from being born into a grave. Axiomatic enemy of the state says, can you show some pictures of Zelensky's wife on the front lines or any of the wives of the other Ukrainian aristocracy? Or is this fate just reserved for the peasant girls? And finally, Sovereign Human says, what kind of fucked up country and leadership sends pregnant women to the front lines? Yeah, the idea that this is something to be proud of or something to tout is just completely perverse. This is a statement on just how far gone this war is and how at this point, yeah, to keep fighting is, it's a crude way of putting it, to throw good money after bad money. Like, how many people have to just die needlessly? It's not enough you went through your men. Now you have to put pregnant women into battle, and they're touting this as some sort of statement of resilience, as if it should be celebrated. I mean, they're brave. I don't take that away from them, obviously. But when you step back even an inch from this, you just see just what a horrible state of affairs this is. And look at the position. I mean, not this is on their mind, but think about this. Now, if you're Russians, you're fighting against pregnant women. You're shooting at pregnant women. You're shelling pregnant. I mean, it's just, it's a humanitarian nightmare. It's a nightmare. And, stories like this really highlight the human cost of this war, which has been somewhat overshadowed, obviously, by the genocide in Gaza and by the fact that we don't see much video of the human cost of this war. We see, videos of men getting pulled out of their cars and taken off the streets and shipped to the front lines. But this is another side of this that we really don't see or hear from much. But it is just harrowing to hear these accounts of these women getting pulled into battle, pregnant and just after giving birth.
Yeah, as soon as you started reading it and I got a sense of the tone of the article, it's very Starship Troopers. Yes, citizens, pregnant women are going to the front lines. It's just so deranged. And, going to something Nick Cruz often points out, we are really the most propagandized country on earth. Hands down, no question about it. You want to say Putin is an autocrat? Okay, you can get into the history of why, when the Russians got a taste of what our idea of economic liberalization would mean, Goldman Sachs coming in and raping their country, and Russia becoming a client state of the West. There are whole articles you can look up. Clinton sent in his own team to secure Yeltsin the presidency. So they got a taste of what our idea of freedom and democracy is, and they went to a strong man that would protect the country from Western predations. If we did not want that, maybe we should have treated them a little differently at the end of the Cold War. But it's no surprise that they would have fallen back on historic patterns, given that we very quickly reduced their country to one where I think it was something like 75% of Russian high school girls said they would engage in prostitution for money at the depths of the post-Cold War economy, right, where they're trading tires for eggs. Like, what did you, that is the face that we put on democracy and liberal economics for them. What did you expect them to do? So now we're here. What's Ukraine? He's banned political parties. He's banned press. And now they're putting, can you imagine if Putin put pregnant women on the front lines of a war?
Yeah.
When you look at who we're allied with, the basic premise that this has anything to do with democracy, freedom, like we care about those things. You can be an enemy to the United States, an enemy, or you can be a client. There is no other category that we allow countries to function in. If Russia at the end of the Cold War had allowed itself to become a client of the United States, well, you'd have very different rhetoric around Russia. That is the cardinal sin of Russia. It's not Putin. It's not, we don't care about any of that. It is that Russia did not bend the knee to the West. That is all this is about. And they are willing to destroy Ukraine. This is not anything against the Ukrainian people. This war is against the Ukrainian people.
Right.
The West is against the Ukrainian people. They are willing to destroy that entire population, wipe it out in order to drain Russia's resources, human and economic. That's all this is.
Exactly. Yes. It's a great feat of propaganda that to express disgust at the fact that pregnant women are being dragged to the front line is somehow a statement against Ukraine. It's against the policies of the Ukrainian government, and it's against the cravenness of the United States and NATO to use the Ukrainian people as cannon fodder for a proxy war. I don't have a quarrel with the Ukrainian people that such that I wish this upon them. I mean, yeah, they do have a bit of an NAZI problem over there, sure, but I don't wish them I don't wish them this. I don't wish anybody this, right? The idea that to call this out in a way that puts it in a negative light is somehow to trash Ukraine or a statement against the people of Ukraine is completely sick. It's completely backwards. The tone of the New York Times article was the exact same as the tone of the guy who tweeted it out. They're reporting it as if this is something to be celebrated and venerated, as opposed to at the start of the segment I pointed out. What Hedges says about war as a war reporter is absolutely right. I mean, war is hell. That is not an exaggeration. It is literal hell on earth. It's hell on earth for anybody, including men who are capable of fighting it. You're going to put pregnant women on the front line? When my wife was 7 months pregnant, she could barely stay awake for 4 hours at a time. They're going to go do battle? It's completely fucking sick and psychotic. And it should have never started, and it has to end. And when you see stories like this written in that kind of tone, it shows you, what you said. We are the most propagandized people in the world. There's no question about that.
Well, and on the Ukrainian end, why are they going to this extreme? I think Zelensky is gambling, and maybe rightly, that in the end, the West will not let them go down. That in the end, they're going to get their Western troops, and they're going to get their World War III. This is what they want. And that's why the situation is as dangerous as it is. Because you have a so-called ally, a client state, that it desperately wants to start World War III.
Yes, 100%. Amadeus, thanks for the $5, says, September 25th is my birthday. Can you do a Rick and Morty stream? Keaton shaves yellow shirt and says, oh, geez, a lot. Russell lab coat and drinks and swears. So you want us to do a theme birthday party for you, is that right?
Oh. Wow.
It's going to take more than $5 to put that together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amadeus. Quintessential, Keaton still looking for expat place? Lebanon has freest speech in the world. Ask your Lebanese friends, Rania Khalek, English spoken widely. I just visited. Well, thank you for that, Quintessential. Amadeus says no sympathy for Nazis, not even mothers. Well, I don't know that they're all Nazis. I mean, you know what I mean? I think that's a little bit of a generalization. Amadeus says Putin isn't a Care Bear, but he's no Ivan the Terrible. Thank you, Amadeus. Nocturnal Human over on Rumble says, do people really care about the logo of Cracker Barrel more than the name of the Gulf of Mexican Americans? What if we name it the Gulf of Crackers? Yeah, like that. Yeah, good one. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. That would be a good one. Yes, I like that idea. Hillary Hinton says, you dirtbags should start a Dude Dissidents Grinder app for the black-pilled post-duopoly crew and call it Dude Dissidents. You're welcome. Thank you. Hillary Hinton.
It's a good idea.
That is a good idea. RB says on my way.
We've got a better one. We did the math, and we're about to do a big heel turn on Gaza because we're pretty sure AIPAC will pay us $10,743,000.27 to do that.
Yeah,
that's what we've calculated based on history.
Yeah, they already have the AIPAC tracker graphic made up for us. They're just waiting for it to be official. RB Ham says, on my way to Jimmy Dore live show in Edmonton tonight. We'll be kibitzing with him afterwards. Look at you, kibitzing. Look at you. with him after at the meet and greet. Should be a blast. Yes, should be fun. Looking forward to the most moral comedy set in the world. Yes, should be good. Should be a good show. Yeah, it's Canada tonight. That's right. So it's a 3-night swing, I think. Thank you, RB. Appreciate that very much. All right. Let's go on. Let's move on. All right. So we got the real heavy one out of the way. So now let's have a little fun on this Thursday, which is our Friday. Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel.
Cracker ass, cracker, I'll put my foot in the cracker ass, cracker.
So, Cracker Barrel. No sooner did they realize that nobody really cared about Sydney Sweeney than they found another culture war grift to jump on. Cracker Barrel had good reasons to rebrand, but after its new logo misfired, here's what's next. That's from AP. We're going to use a little of that article, but we're going to draw from quite a few different sources. I got to say, this piece took a village. I've got a video that was sent by friend of show Tusker McGinty. I've got an article that actually Ellen Jimerson posted. So I pulled from a lot of sources. Now, this
put a lot of work into this. This is the most important story of the year.
It's the well, it is. Yeah. It is. I would argue this is more important than ICE raids.
Yeah, right.
It's more. Not in all seriousness, it's a great study in how they build the peasant mind, and we're going to take a look at that. And I hope that people who are working people who take that bait and think that their problem is that Cracker Barrel went woke. It didn't, by the way. And hey, we're honest brokers. I covered Target. Keaton covered it, the great Red Sox scandal over there. I covered Dylan Mulvaney. You know, I'm sensitive to that when corporations push those agendas. I've always argued it has nothing to do with believing in it. They just thought they would make some money off it. But that's not what happened here. And the way that they are so purposefully trying to distract people from what actually happened here, why Cracker Barrel has had declining quality for years before this rebrand, that is something they don't really want you thinking about. Okay, so Fat Kid Deals. This is an X account. It's got millions of followers that just shows you like deals that are out there on the internet. But their post about this, almost 20 million views. Cracker Barrel has rebranded for the first time since 1977. So you see on the left, this was the uncle of the founders, Uncle Herschel, who had like a country store. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, a Cracker Barrel, before they would put them in boxes, they'd put the soda crackers in a barrel. So your like country general store would very often have the soda Cracker Barrel. And, you know, it's meant to evoke how people would sit around and talk around this barrel, maybe play games on top of it. So they go to this cleaner design, as the marketing world might say, on the right. Byron Donalds. In college, I worked at Cracker Barrel in Tallahassee. I even gave my life to Christ in their parking lot
what the hell
after
does that
a particularly awful blowjob.
What the hell does that mean? I gave my life to Christ in their parking lot.
It burns. Their logo was iconic, and their unique restaurants were a fixture of American culture. No one asked for this woke rebrand. It's time to make Cracker Barrel great again. Okay. All right. Took a little break from lending his skin to cover for Donald Trump's policies to weigh in on Cracker Barrel. Christopher Rufo. All right. I'm hearing chatter from behind the scenes about the Cracker Barrel campaign, and on second thought, we must break the barrel. It's not about this particular restaurant chain. Who cares? But about creating massive pressure against companies that are considering any move that might appear to be wokeification. The implicit promise, go woke, watch your stock price drop 20%, which is exactly what's happening now. I was wrong. The barrel must be broken. I didn't see the lead into that. I guess he tried to be a voice of reason in this. Hey, guys, it's just a logo redesign. And then he realized that's not where his bread is buttered. Robbie Starbuck. Meet Gilbert Davia, one of the board members for Cracker Barrel. He's led a DEI strategy firm since 2010, and he was a VP working on diversity at Disney. That's his experience. He also pushes for DEI in advertisements. Cracker Barrel is infested with DEI and wokeness. You know what? If that's the best you could come up with, I'm betting it's not. I'm betting it's not overrun with DEI and wokeness. There's not like 3 people on a board of directors, right? You know that's quite a great number of people. If you could only find one person like that, I never saw the Cracker Barrel float in the Pride Parade. They never really jumped on that bandwagon. This is why, yes, BlackRock does invest in Cracker Barrel. BlackRock is the largest institutional shareholder in Cracker Barrel Old Country Store with an approximate 15.35% ownership of the company as of June 30th, 2025. Okay, well, there is certainly something to interrogate in the fact that BlackRock is the largest institutional shareholder in pretty much fucking everything on earth. But maybe you haven't heard. BlackRock smelled this even before the election, smelled the cultural shift coming. Because you have to remember, these companies don't really believe in anything. They believe in profit.
Right.
They saw the writing on the wall. This is an article from September before the election. In August, BlackRock, the world's largest investment firm, reported that it had significantly reduced its support for shareholder proposals addressing environmental and social issues. From July 2023 until June of this year, the firm backed only 4% of the 493 such proposals. In 2021, BlackRock supported 47% of such proposals by shareholder activists. So, I don't think that they almost entirely eliminated their ESG efforts, but decided to make an exception to make Cracker Barrel woke. I'm betting that's not what they decided to weigh in on all of a sudden. So here's Amuse. Of course, the CEO is getting a lot of the wrath. Go woke, go broke. Cracker Barrel CEO Julie Fice-Massino's decision to decolonize the company. Now, they put it in quotes as if she said that. I haven't found any place where she said anything even in that ballpark or neighborhood. The company, starting by removing the old-fashioned country gentleman meant to evoke nostalgia and Americana from the logo, is hammering the stock, wiping out $250 million in value. Since Fice became CEO, the stock is down 34%, erasing $587 million in value. Okay, so Cracker Barrel stock has been collapsing since COVID. It was at a high, I think, of $179. They hired her partly to reverse that slide in their stock value. And believe it or not, her efforts were bearing some fruit. So this is from the AP article. Like its namesake barrels that transported soda crackers until boxes replaced them, Cracker Barrel needed to change. The restaurant chain's new CEO, Julia Fice-Massino, laid out the argument to investors last year. Cracker Barrel's customer traffic was down 16% compared to 2019. Okay, this has nothing to do with her. That's why they hired her, because this was happening, which according to many, many people, even people who are friendly to Cracker Barrel, is because their food started to suck badly. Research showed consumers thought the brand fell short of competitors in essential ways, from the quality of the food to value and convenience. Cracker Barrel hired Messino, a longtime Taco Bell and Starbucks executive, in July 2023. She was chosen for her record as an innovator, with the hope that she would attract new customers to Cracker Barrel, which operates 660 restaurants in 43 states. Messino introduced updated menu items like hash brown casserole shepherd's pie to increase Cracker Barrel's dinner time traffic. She also started remodeling the company's dark, antique-filled restaurants, lightening the walls and installing more comfortable seating. The changes appear to be helping. Cracker Barrel's fiscal third quarter, which ended May 2nd, was the fourth consecutive quarter of same-store sales growth for the company. Same-store sales, a key metric for restaurants, measures sales at locations open at least 1 year. This had nothing to do with a woke rebrand. Was it woke when McDonald's went to an M for its logo, or when Walmart's went to a W for its logo? This is partly because they know people look things up on their cell phones. So they're trying to make the designs very simple so that they'll show up clearly on a phone.
Interesting.
Has nothing to do with making it woke. Like if you look at Cracker Barrel's logo, it's actually a particularly visually complex logo, if that's how you're thinking, that you want a very simple image that will pop right out on a phone.
Right.
End wokeness with its usual measured examination of the situation. Cracker Barrel CEO Julie Messino should face charges for this crime against humanity. Crime. Okay, let's take a closer look at this. Okay. So what you have on the left is kind of a fake version of a mid-century kind of Southern diner. It's fake. It was always fake. If you've traveled abroad, they'll always have places, maybe not as much now, they don't like us too much. American diner. And you go in as an American, it's like, yeah, right. They bought a Coca-Cola sign and what they think of as American. They bought like an Elvis doll or something, right? And it's very fake to you. That's what, if you're from real Southern culture, that's what Cracker Barrel is. Now, you could argue it's kind of sad that we've gotten so far from the original that some people are fiercely protective of what was always a bad copy of what it was supposed to be. Now, if you look on the right, it's a modern version of that. It's a style called modern farmhouse. It's very popular with certain more upscale Southern brands. They're not really trying to get away from what that brand is. They're trying to update it to try to help their sales, which are down. So now on the broader point, this is Francesca Ramsey. Conservatives are blaming wokeness and DEI for Cracker Barrel's recent redesign. But there's a simple answer for why today's restaurants look so bland. Private equity. This is what all the grifters are not going to tell you about, because those are their buddies. Those are their buddies. They don't want you going after the money people. The private equity firms that buy up these chains don't care if the restaurant lives or dies. The value is in the property and being able to lease it out to someone else. So if the building is boring, it can easily be flipped and replaced with a new business later on. So while the restaurants we grew up with had lots of character and distinct styles, it's a lot harder to sell a building that looks like it used to be a McDonald's, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, or a Cracker Barrel to a totally different company. So look at these pictures. Did McDonald's go woke? Is that why McDonald's sucks now? I can tell you, because I'm old enough, like a lot of food from different restaurant chains, the older ones, are much worse than they were when I was younger. Like Dunkin' Donuts used to be like real donuts. They were fluffy, they were airy, they were like twice the size of what they are now. Now it's like a sugar-flavored hockey puck, because they figured out that they can sell that and make a lot more money than they would make making a better product. But none of these people in the griftiverse are going to tell you that, because they don't want you questioning capitalism. They don't want you questioning the imperatives of capitalism. You know, actually, Cracker Barrel is profitable. That's not enough for Wall Street. That's why legacy car companies like GM, like Ford, full disclosure, I'm a shareholder in Ford. That is why they trade at about 7 times earnings, and Tesla trades at something like 500 times earnings. Why? Because it's a growth story. People see that as a growth story. It doesn't make nearly as much as GM, as Ford, as these older car companies make, but they believe there's going to be growth. Cracker Barrel's a profitable business, but there's no growth. And if there's no growth, Wall Street loses interest. All right, so this is a great video. I don't think My Name Is My Name posted it. It's got a lot of views, but I don't think he actually made it. I could be wrong, but this video explains it very well.
By the way, is all because of Wall Street. This is all because of the stock market, because of investors, private equity, and the demand to get more value to shareholders. This has nothing to do with wokeness or DEI, you stupid sleeping babies. Okay? I'm going to explain this to you. McDonald's, the way McDonald's is structured is McDonald's owns the land underneath this building. They own the land. They're the biggest landholders in the United States when it comes to commercial properties. The franchisees then rent the building on top of them. And you know what happens? Sometimes McDonald's go out of business. And when McDonald's goes out of business, they want to put a different business in there and they want to sell the land underneath it. Well, guess what? When you have a building that can only be a McDonald's, or can only be a Pizza Hut, or can only be a Cracker Barrel, or only be a Taco Bell, guess what? It's harder to sell those businesses. So every business has slowly been turning into a gray or beige box, because you know what happens when you put a vape store inside of an old Pizza Hut? We all call it, oh, the vape store inside of the old Pizza Hut. Now, in the future, they'll just pull the Pizza Hut sign off and you'll go, I think that might have used to be a Starbucks. I don't remember. I don't know. But all the buildings used to look like this. It's also easier to do upkeep on it. They all have the same dumb awning with these weird little latches attached to them. They don't have to have the special McDonald's only custom ordered roof, or the special Pizza Hut red shingle, or making sure that they have to do this special lighting underneath Cracker Barrel, or whatever was going on with Taco Bell back in the day. They're all buying from the same company. They're all using the same parts. That brings down their cost. They're not building play places anymore. It's not because of wokeness. It's not because, oh, gay people, no. It's because insurance for a play place costs more than just having a fucking McDonald's. Because the purpose of all these buildings is to just pay off the property taxes while the land underneath it gets more and more expensive, so eventually you can sell it to somebody. Like in the case of Cracker Barrel, maybe the fact that they have land that's connected to the edge of every single highway exit by mid-tier cities all across the United States, maybe that'll be a good play for somebody who wants to put up electric vehicle supercharge stations. Oh, look how they're all convenient right here off the highway, and we have robots that can serve everybody $12 hot dogs. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But none of this has to do with wokeness, DEI, LGBT, black people, immigrants. None of that shit was caused by this. This was completely caused by Excel spreadsheets and people going, if we do less, we can cash out with more. And that's the American dream, to do fuck all and to cash out with a lot more money. Okay?
Boom.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny. I always wondered about that, why everything looks so much blander and more nondescript, and I never even thought of that. That's wild. It's almost like that's what they say communism does, right? Under communism, everything is gray and homogenous and with no personality or no character. But it turns out capitalism causes that as well, doesn't it?
It does, and this is where this story is interesting. On the face of it, it's a silly story. But if you really look at the Herculean efforts that these right-wing influencers went to avoid a discussion of how the imperatives of capitalism destroyed everything you used to love, how intent they are on making you blame wokeness, on making you blame lazy workers who don't take pride in their work, on fostering a nostalgia for an imagined America that didn't really exist and certainly didn't exist in the way that they framed it. It's all because they don't want people to understand You know why the food sucks at Cracker Barrel now? It's not because of lazy workers. It's because of the financial imperatives. They decided they could make more money by making shittier food because of your nostalgia for Cracker Barrel, will keep going there.
Right.
So they say, hey, we got enough people who'll keep going there just because it's a Cracker Barrel. Where they messed up is, okay, they have a business with a drop in customers. Okay, well, now the customers that you have are people who are so committed to what it is that it doesn't even matter that you made the food lousy over years. They're still going there. And now you're going to change the thing that they're going there for.
Right.
That's what the customers are mad about. Now, they're not wrong that it was a kind of dying business. It was still profitable. But then you got to ask yourself, and this is where you really get to a core critique of capitalism. Capitalism wants constantly expanding growth, constantly expanding profits, whereas a mom and pop store can eke out a living, and that's enough. Not with these big corporate chains, it's not. Not if it's being traded on Wall Street, it's not. So now they got to keep coming up with ways to make more and more money, and that's very often going to mean a degradation in the quality of the food.
Right.
Okay, so you want to talk about a crazy, unhinged rant. This is Sean Davis. He is the CEO of The Federalist. The real reason Cracker Barrel has been struggling is that its service and food quality nosedived after COVID. Okay, good enough. You're on the right track. And instead of fixing that, oh, here he goes. The company and its woke executives decided to go full Bud Light and taste the rainbow and dare its customers to object. They stopped bringing you biscuits and cornbread as a matter of course. Okay. Now we're getting back to legitimate issues. Then they shrunk them. The food started to taste and look reheated instead of freshly prepared. And the service got slower and sloppier. Everyone who's been a loyal customer over the years has experienced this. It's undeniable. Those are admittedly tricky problems to fix, especially given how service quality everywhere has sucked after COVID. It's hard to find waitstaff and cooks who always show up when they're supposed to and take pride in their work. Now you see how he doesn't want to blame the imperatives of the corporation for why. Well, maybe if you're having problems with the workers, maybe you're not paying them enough. He doesn't. They're lazy. They're bad slaves. Bad slaves. You're supposed to work hard as a slave. He doesn't want to get into that. He only wants to interrogate the corporation as being woke, which in this particular case, there is really no evidence for at all, that this was anything other than an attempt to grow sales in a dying brand. Cracker Barrel executives refused to address those problems that any customer would have pointed out had they bothered to ask. Instead, the executives went all in on woke alphabet BS. DEI this, BLM that, LGBT whatever. Because that's what people want at an old country diner. Gay race communism.
Gay race communism.
Okay, this is what he's calling gay race communism.
It's true. The third Thursday of the month is gay race communism night at Cracker Barrel.
There is that.
That's just one night a month.
But the other 6 days,
right,
it is not dedicated to gay race communism. This is what he's calling gay race communism. I mean, I find it bland, but again, I mean, this is just in keeping with what all these other brands have done, and we just explored why they do that. It's there's no, how could you interpret this as gay race communism? In what way is this gay race communism?
Gay race communism.
Just wow, man. He goes on, he's not done. Cracker Barrel wasn't just a company or a restaurant. It represented a slice of Americana that millions would desperately like to return to. a time where people worked with their hands and prayed before meals and didn't bother locking their doors at night. The old soda signs reminded us that our money wasn't always worthless and our country wasn't always run by greedy bankers. Greedy bankers, you mean like the people who back the president that you support? Like those kind of greedy bankers? How about oligarchs? How about the country being run by oligarchs? No, he's not going to talk about that. We used to be a country that built things. Okay, well, then we let these corporations write the trade deals and conquered the frontier. That's the feeling that Cracker Barrel used to evoke, and it's what made its customers so loyal. So jumping ahead a little bit, it's that feeling and that America which the woke parasites in charge of Cracker Barrel deliberately sought to maliciously destroy. They refused to fix the actual problems and instead decided the real problem was its own customers, which it set out to re-educate. Okay.
Wow.
So, there's something that these people, when they go on these rants about how great America used to be, there's a side of that they never deal with. So, I said it took a village. We went to friend of show Mecca Hitler for Mecca Hitler's input on some of these numbers. I asked, what was the top tax rate the year Cracker Barrel opened? 69, the year Cracker Barrel was founded, it was 77% for individuals earning over $200,000, reflecting a stark contrast to today's 37% top rate and highlighting a historical economic context where high taxation coexisted with the company's initial success. Historical data from the IRS and Walters Kluwer indicate that this high tax rate gradually declined after 1964, stabilizing between 30 to 40% by 1987, suggesting that Cracker Barrel's early growth occurred in an era of significant government revenue demands, challenging the notion that low taxes are always linked to business prosperity. So this time that you're talking about where the country was, in your imaginings, very safe and secure and a much better place for people to live. He's talking about white people. A much better place for people to live, which I'm not saying that today's America is better for anybody, but a lot of what people like him are complaining about is that they've been dragged down to the America that a lot of people were experiencing already. They're no longer enjoying this America that he's describing, whatever the hypocrisies and contradictions are. But they will never address the fact that the country was as close to socialist as it's ever been during this period that they're so nostalgic for. Strong unions, very strong union protection, very unionized labor force, high taxes on upper tax bracket, relatively functional social safety net. So you want to go back to that, we need to bring back these tax rates. They don't talk about that. Here's Benny in the closet talking about his love of the Cracker Barrel worker. Cracker Barrel insider breaks silence on the woke destruction of an American institution. Eric Russell spent nearly 10 years working at Cracker Barrel. He's done every job in the restaurant. Eric even met his wife there. To Eric, Cracker Barrel was a place where tradition lived and values mattered. But over the past decade, Eric personally witnessed from the inside how corporate sabotage destroyed the Cracker Barrel American institution.
I thought I was going to say he gave himself to Byron Donalds in the parking lot.
He was the one. He was the one who used his teeth on him, making him go to Jesus. Okay, so he says, they used to go out and scout for the antiques, and now they're doing mass-produced decor, which I agree with. I agree with, but we just examined why that is, which is something Benny in the Closet is not going to get into. It's the imperatives of the real estate resale value. It's not because they became woke. It's not because all of a sudden they hated that. If they were making great money doing that, they do that. What could not be destroyed from the outside was dismantled from within. Longtime employees left, regulars stopped coming, and standards fell. Quote, I felt like I was part of something truly American, full of nostalgia and tradition. Now all of that's being torn down and replaced with just another bland, soulless corporate chain, Eric said. Well, you're on the right track, but you're identifying the wrong culprit, my friend. His next word stuck with me. Cracker Barrel built up decades of goodwill across the country. We often referred to ourselves as America's front porch after the iconic long storefront filled with rocking chairs and checkerboards where guests would wait to be seated. Each store I worked in felt slightly different, a reflection of their communities. According to Eric, the Cracker Barrel he loved, the one so many families cherished, is gone. Eric lived the golden years. He met his wife there. Many co-workers were couples too, bound together by shared values. Okay, well, again, very much like the CEO of the Federalist, there's a side of this that Benny in the Closet is not going to talk about. The CEO of Cracker Barrel, Julie Phelps-Messino, received a total annual compensation of about $6.68 million in 2025, including a $5.72 million performance bonus. She directly owns 0.04% of Cracker Barrel shares, valued roughly at $485,740. The average Cracker Barrel restaurant employee makes about $17.26 an hour. At about 30 hours a week, that's an annual compensation of about $24,861. Restaurant employees are not offered shares of the company. Why is it always we can't afford to pay our workers more, but never we can't afford to pay our CEO more for the new logo everyone hates? You notice how none of them are taking that angle? You notice how none of these people are outraged or taking the angle of how much the CEO gets paid? Even in the case of this supposedly decolonizing, woke, hated CEO with the trendy glasses, even her, they don't quite, because they can't start questioning her compensation without opening up a conversation about CEO compensation. And they can't open up that conversation without opening up a conversation about worker compensation. And that is why their job, which literally a lot of them get paid on top of the over-the-line payments that they get off their advertising and so on, a lot of them are getting paid behind the scenes. And even when they're not getting directly paid, they're getting paid with access. Benny in the Closet gets to go to Alligator Alcatraz and get a lot of views, get a lot of hits off that. He gets access by pushing an agenda that is friendly to oligarchs. The whole purpose of this rage bait is to build the peasant mind. It's to make you mad. Oh, yeah, these lazy workers, which fucking you're probably one of them, man. We saw it when we were in California hosting for Jimmy, right when they raised the minimum wage for fast food workers, man. People got furious that we were supportive of that. This is how they make people think like that. All of this is just to distract you from why your life sucks. They can't have you looking at the whole economic structure that they are paid propagandists for. They are being paid to make you think it's a culture war and not a class war. So again, our friend Mecca Hitler helped us out here. I asked, what was the average CEO to worker pay the year Cracker Barrel opened, and what is it now? Cracker Barrel opened in 1969. Data on CEO to worker pay ratios for that specific year is sparse, but broader studies provide contexts. In the late 1960s, the Economic Policy Institute estimates the CEO to worker pay ratio across major U.S. firms was around 20 to 1. For recent data, Cracker Barrel's 2023 proxy statement reports a CEO to worker pay ratio of 588 to 1, with CEO Sandra B. Cochran, that was the preceding CEO, total compensation at $8,271,069, and the median employee pay at $14,062 in 2023. This aligns with broader trends. The AFL-CIO notes the 2024 average CEO to worker pay ratio for S&P 500 companies was 285 to 1, while low-wage firms averaged 632 to 1. In other words, businesses like Cracker Barrel. In summary, 1961 Cracker Barrel's opening year, 20 to 1 estimated, 588 to 1 now. But they want to tell you that the reason your life sucks is because the CEO is woke, not because the CEO is grossly overcompensated and the workers are grossly undercompensated. They want to talk about how, things were better then because everybody washed their hands and prayed to Jesus before they ate at the Cracker Barrel. They don't want you looking at the fact that the economic conditions of this time they're so nostalgic for was a time when the top tax rate the year that Cracker Barrel opened was 77%, and the CEO only made 20 times more than the average worker. That very obvious reason that life was better then for certain people, not for everybody, for certain people, white people. That is why it was better. So, of course, the boss had to weigh in on this. Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo, admit a mistake based on customer response, the ultimate poll, and manage the company better than ever before. They got $1 billion worth of free publicity if they play their cards right. Very tricky to do, but a great opportunity. Have a major news conference today. Make Cracker Barrel a winner again. Remember, in just a short period of time, I made the United States the hottest country anywhere in the world. By hottest, meaning people are avoiding it like a hot surface, I guess he means. 1 year ago, it was dead. Good luck. Okay. So Cracker Barrel, of course, backed off on the logo rebrand. We thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old-timer will remain. Okay. So we're going to have a lot of unusual praise today. Later on, we're doing a good article by Taylor Loretz. This was a good thing from The Atlantic about this. This is part of the irony of this whole affair. Cracker Barrel destroyed the kinds of businesses that it's meant to evoke. The right-wing backlash to the company's redesign stems from the claim that an avatar of small-town Southern authenticity is being overrun by woke culture. But nothing about the change suggests wokeness. More important, Cracker Barrel has always been a simulacrum of rural life, a corporate behemoth masquerading as a mom-and-pop lunch counter. The chain was founded as a way to sell gas. The founder's family was in the fuel business. Its locations were, and still are, largely clustered along interstate highways. The interstate system is a modern marvel, but the creation of huge freeways that bypassed the old U.S. highways sapped commerce and population from towns that relied on car traffic, destroying truly eccentric culture, such as the old Route 66, and replacing it with drab chains that were the same no matter which exit ramp you took to get to them. Cracker Barrel began by offering a sanitized version of the mid-century South, and now it's simply updated to the 2020s. The chain is just one part of the real corporate monoculture. Exactly. And finally, from our friend Ellen Jimerson, this is a newspaper from Alabama, and the writer here had an interesting perspective on why these culture war provocations work so well on a certain population and what the purpose of them is. Not only did crying woke in a half-full restaurant get more attention than putting a complaint in the suggestions box, but it was highly effective. The President of the United States chimed in. And even though Cracker Barrel was probably going to reverse course already, now he gets to take the credit. And why? Because he listened to people who were mad because they felt they hadn't been listened to. Folks can shout fascism until the sun sets, but we shouldn't discount how much of Trump's power comes from little moments like this, when he listens to people others have written off. What explains Bernie bros who jumped to Trump? Those Obama Trump voters who defected. Call them low information if you dare. They're trying to say something, and that something is as simple as we're not being heard. It's easy to look at your typical Cracker Barrel patron and say those people don't have real problems. Don't do that. When we talk about inequality, the conversation almost always falls back to income inequality. But inequality is something that manifests in many different forms. There's inequality of voice, of influence, and cultural status, even spiritual things like a sense of belonging or a higher purpose. Together, these disparities are the cauldron of magma bubbling under the American crust right now, and it's looking for ways to vent to the surface. What the charlatans like Trump have figured out is that if you satisfy a simple disparity like being heard, you don't have to fix the hard stuff. Heck, you can even make it worse and get rich doing it. Exactly. So now look, in that spirit of reconciliation and coming together, I found a suggestion for a new Cracker Barrel meme that I think we should all be able to agree on. Left, right, center, MAGA, libs. We can all come together around this logo.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. So yeah, this was really, it was much more interesting than the Sydney Sweeney thing, because that was really just a lot of grifters trying to pretend there was a culture war around a subject that nobody really cared about. This one, because of the way it hit on questions of economics, labor, and why everything sucks, like Cracker Barrel is a really good microcosm of why society keeps becoming worse in terms of the average person's experience of it. And they seem helpless to stop it from getting that way, because all the economic incentives of our system push things towards monoculture, push things towards lower and lower quality. This idea that you see in Ayn Rand, that capitalism will always lead to people making a better hamburger, it's actually not true. Not in late stage capitalism. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now you're better off making an inferior quality product and using marketing gimmicks to get people to buy it anyway. Now, for people who have more elevated taste, that's where you have these elite brands. That's where they do big Instagram marketing campaigns. They pay influencers to get them to go to these more high-end, they do small batch ice cream, right? So that's there for the people who are going to want it. For the pigs, for the swine, for the peasants, they're going to give you this crap. They're going to give you this shit. And they're going to try to find a marketing technique to get you to eat it. And particularly if you have brand loyalty, like a lot of people do with Cracker Barrel, as a lot of these articles got into, people were still going there because it was habit, even as the food continued to decline. McDonald's, you can look at it. Like it's completely different, even in the ingredients, from what it was in the 70s, because it's cheaper to make it this way. And they figured out they can sell you shit. They cannot have workers en masse questioning the system itself. And it is the system itself that has caused this problem. They need wokeness. They need to be able to claim wokeness as a distraction for the working class and an explanation. It's a theology. Because if it's not wokeness, what is it? Right? Then they have to start asking questions like this.
Well, yeah, and it's not even about selling product. You don't even have to sell product. The product is just there. You sell the product until, like the guy said, sell as much product as you can while you pay off the property taxes, and then you sell the property when it's much more expensive than it was when you bought it. And so, you know, these restaurants, these big chains are not even in the business that they appear to be in. Not really.
Right. They're not
restaurants.
Really.
Right. They're just basically a placeholder, right, for where the real money is. And yeah, obviously the interstate system took a big toll on local color and local culture as well. You know, you take a road trip now, every exit on the highway, you have more or less the same 4 or 5 businesses.
Right.
You know, 1 or 2 gas stations, 1 or 2 fast food places, 1 or 2 chain hotels, and that's it. That's it. And the road goes on. So yeah, no, it's that was a really interesting video about the whole like homogenization of the stores, because I realized that too. You know, when we were kids, McDonald's used to be a fun house. You know,
right.
Used to have all these characters in there,
the
swings
ballroom,
outside, all of this stuff. Now you know you don't have any of it. All right, let's move on right along here. All right, folks, we're gonna pause for a quick word for one of our dissident sponsors, El Shabooms, and his series, The Grifter's Bible. That's right. The Grifter's Bible is the mind-bending novel by El Shabooms, and it's now a free weekly series on YouTube with a soundtrack by monumental sonic architecture. Follow the First Electric Church of Jesus as they combine the bleeding edge of black patented neuroscience with the state-of-the-art in Michigas to beat the Great Recession. They sell visions of God to the huddled masses of Deep Ellum, Texas, and the money pours in until the local competition, the police, and the U.S. Navy decide to put a stop to it. There's ass whoopings, car chases, and a showdown at high noon on Good Friday in Dodge City. It's sci-fi noir. It's a picaresque thriller. It's a Western from 10 minutes in the future. It's The Grifter's Bible, and it's a film series by El Shabooms with a soundtrack by monumental sonic architecture. A new episode is posted every Monday at youtube.com/@ElShabooms. So go over there and check that out. A new episode, like I said, drops every Monday on the YouTube channel. That's the link right there, @ElShabooms, youtube.com/@ElShabooms. So go over there and give them a follow. Okay, Amadeus says, name your price. We can do it another year. All right, well, get back to us next year. Yeah, we won't quote you anything now. Inflation being what it is and all. Brad Gilbert says, wouldn't Jew Jizzy Dance work better on Grindr? Ha, good one, Brad Gilbert. Appreciate that. Abiding 71, online masochist. Michael Tracy hunched over his keyboard, violating himself as he watches tweet after tweet get ratioed. There you go. CEB Applejack. That's right. Applejack is here. Salute. I hope you guys enjoyed my feature. Thank you guys for helping me signal boost East Palestine issue. Yeah, Applejack was great on the Misty Winston show last night. That was a great episode. We will have that entire piece clipped soon. So stay tuned for that on the YouTube channel. But in the meantime, head over to our Rumble page and watch. It was the first hour and 20 minutes of the Misty Winston show last night. Well done, Applejack. Thank you very much for all your work. Chrysler 99. Thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Chrysler 99.
Got to do a virtual.
That's right. Okay, that's right. Says, can you explain the process again for getting on board with Due Dissidents? I would love to help out. Also went to Mariners game, propagandized with bullhorns talking about Christ, love Bibi and Israel.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, I don't know what you mean. Thank you for the $50, by the way.
Hang on. Isn't the Mariners Seattle?
They're Seattle. Yep.
And exactly. They were doing that there?
Yeah. Yep. That's in Seattle. Well, I don't know what you mean by get involved. If you mean by become a member, like I said, we have those membership links, dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Or if you're talking about applying for the segment producer, just send us an email, dudissidents@gmail.com. That's those are your options there.
Yeah, as we said, we'll really get serious about that when I get back, which will be after the 5th.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Professor Brownout says, time to unite in dissidents. Join my Trotskyite Stalinist Revolutionary Reformist United Faction Party, TSRRUFP. Let's go to war for peace and proletarian dictatorship. Thank you, Professor Brownout. China Shell says, future article, evil Russian orcs massacre pregnant women. That's right. Ken G says, just wanted to wish Gilgamesh a happy 5,000 years. That's right, yes. All right, let's go up here. There's this, there's this, there's this. Just got to clear these out. Okay. Beautiful. All right, we also have some Rumble Rants waiting in the patron chat, which we'll get to a little bit later. We got 32 hanging out in the members-only room. Like I said, folks, for those who joined the show late, we will be switching over to a members-only stream that members have access to via their email. If you are a paid member, that will be starting fairly soon. But we still got a couple more pieces here on the main side. All right, so we will move right along here. All right, folks, so you may know, you may have heard of this outlet. There's a psychotic lesbian outlet called the Free Press. It's just funny. Like, the funny thing about the Free Press is that, like, they're basically Nazis now. I mean, they're basically just towing the Israeli party line the way a Nazi would tow the line of the Third Reich. But they present as such, like, cosmopolitan libs, you know, so there's like a mismatch in their presentation between how they present and what they say. Be like if a Nazi says, okay, we will run this by the team and circle back with you next Wednesday. You know, like if the Third Reich actually had like real PMC language and mannerisms, that's like the Free Press.
Well, that's what Ivanka and Jared are. That's why you don't see them in the second term, because it ruined their social status.
Exactly. So that's basically what this outlet is now. All right. So case in point, they got a retweet from Benjamin Netanyahu. Facts matter at the Free Press. Okay. So they ran an article. By now it's about 10 days ago, I think 11 days ago, that they ran this article questioning the validity of Gaza famine claims because a lot of the kids featured in the more prominent photos had pre-existing health conditions. So thankfully, Olivia Reingold, I think her last name is, made this little video summarizing the article for us, so we don't have to go through the pain of reading it. But this is the video that got the retweet from Bibi himself.
These photos of skeletal kids in Gaza on front pages, all over social media, even in a UNICEF ad. They've become the symbols of famine. But we decided to look into these photos and the stories behind them. And what we found is that in case after case, these kids were sick, but not just with malnutrition. In every instance, they were suffering with other conditions or illnesses like cystic fibrosis, cerebral palsy, and even traumatic head injury.
Oh, really? Really? Is that right? See, they present as the self-satisfied liberal class, but these are like Nazi talking points. That's their angle.
A few weeks ago, I started to notice that the same kids were appearing over and over again in coverage about Gaza, and they were being photographed by different photographers, which suggests some element of coordination. And then the New York Times had to issue an editor's note.
Coordination? You mean like reporters taking photos to report on the situation on the ground? What do you mean coordination? Yeah, if you're a journalist, your job is to coordinate. Your job is to go there and prepare reports. That is coordination of a kind. There's nothing illicit or dirty about that. It's like what one of the Zionist posts, because the cover of Time magazine was all the kids holding the pots and pans out begging for food. And some Zionist posted a picture of the reporter taking the photo as if that invalidates the photo. Like, what are you talking about? Yes, there's a man taking a picture of starving kids. Like, how do you think the photo came to be? Yes, a man took that photograph. Like, it's so sick.
About this viral image, and that made me wonder, what else weren't they telling us about these photos? We did something so simple, it's shocking that no other journalist bothered to do it. So this is how we figured this out.
No, it's not shocking that no other journalist bothered to do it. It's shocking that you did bother to do it. That's what's shocking. What's shocking is that you find claims of famine invalid because the sickest and most vulnerable among the population are the most drastically affected first. That is to be expected. That's not a revelation. That's not a bombshell. That's nothing. So what's actually insane is that your psychotic outlet took it upon themselves to do this work and think it an expose on the fake famine. It's really just psychotic. That's what's strange about this. What's strange is you guys are strange.
Yeah, Candace Owens did a really good video about this, precipitated by the rumor that their free press is going to get bought out by the new CBS, by Skydance for $250 million.
Yeah.
And she looked at their numbers. Like, you would get the impression the free press must be successful. And it restores some of your faith in humanity that they're actually not. Yeah. Somebody's funding them. Somebody is paying them to do this.
Yep.
Let's just take this example of Najwa Hussein Hajj, who appeared in CNN simply as suffering from severe malnutrition in Gaza City. So all we did is we took her name, we went to Google Translate, we took the Arabic spelling of her name, put that into Google, and pulled up a lot of local clips in which her parents were talking about what was really going on. And what we learned is that she has an esophagus condition, which is something that was even reported in English media.
So what? She has an esophagus condition. Like, what is your point? What does that... So what? So they're not starving because they have an esophagus condition? Yes, famine is going to affect kids with a pre-existing condition before it affects kids without a pre-existing condition. That means nothing. That means nothing. It's astounding that they think this means anything.
Including the New York Times. That is a quite different and more nuanced story than the assumption that Israel wants her dead and they're starving her. The most important thing to realize is that the average Gazan does not look like that. And that is really what we find to be problematic about these images, is that they were being used by mainstream media in general stories about starvation. How is it that these legacy newsrooms lacked scrutiny for information coming out of an active war zone controlled by a terrorist group? Well, we asked them, and to figure out what they said and how they defended themselves, you should check out our story in the Free Press.
Did the email read something like, "You're a bunch of psychotic, craven maniacs, and we decided not to turn over those stones because it makes no difference"? It is a complete red herring that some of these kids in these photos had pre-existing conditions. Kids have pre-existing conditions everywhere. That's all the more reason not to starve people. Like, it is just so insane. It is so sick, the line of thought on this. So this is the article that she's summarizing here. This is the headline. They became symbols for Gazan starvation, but all 12 suffer from other health problems. Okay, so Breaking Points did a little piece on this. We're going to show you about 2 minutes because they apparently got under the skin of the Free Press, so much so that the Free Press decided to call them out in a subsequent article defending their original quote-unquote journalism. So here's a couple minutes of Breaking Points sort of taking that article apart.
They say, these are their words. The 14-year-old boy was...
All right, so Crystal's reading from that article right now.
I'm just going to read you what they say. These are their words. The 14-year-old boy was featured in the same CNN story as another child suffering from malnourishment. The original caption didn't mention that last May, that boy had sustained a traumatic head injury amid what SHMS news agency, a Gaza-based outlet, called an Israeli shell explosion. My son was injured in the head, his mother explained. Part of his skull was removed. And so what the Free Press is saying is, oh, well, you didn't mention CNN in that article that Israelis blew part of his skull apart, and that's contributing to his malnourished state. So is that supposed to be a propaganda win for Israel, that in addition to the fact you're starving this child to death, you also blew up part of his head? Is that a...
Yeah, we blew part of his head off first, and that's why he's particularly affected by the famine. I mean, this is how unbelievably fucking depraved these people are.
Win. Another one of the kids that they talk about here, they're like, oh, they also suffer from rickets. Do you know what causes rickets? Vitamin deficiency causes rickets. And you think that, oh, that's completely separate and apart from malnourishment and famine and starvation? I mean, it's just so disgusting. Of course, the first people who are on the brink of death or who have, in hundreds of instances at this point, already starved to death. Yes, of course, it's the sick, it's the weak, it's the vulnerable.
Obviously.
Those are the first people, often children, often infants, or the elderly, to die in famine conditions. That does not take away anything from the horrors of what is being perpetrated here. And it's unbelievable to me that people put this stuff out and think that this makes Israel look good. Oh, congratulations. He had his head blown up too, and he's starving to death. So it's different. CNN's lying. They're doing pro-Hamas propaganda. Like, disgusting. So disgusting.
Zed has actually made I have never familiarized myself with Holocaust denial, so I didn't know the finer points.
Yeah.
I'm learning now, thanks to Zed.
I worked at the Daily Caller for a while, so I didn't really ask too many questions, you know. Keep everybody happy. No, Sagar actually just had a kid, and, you know, Charlie Kirk, we're going to tease what we're going to cover in the Patreon show. Charlie Kirk talks about how becoming a parent changes you because he has high hopes that Taylor Swift will go MAGA once she has a baby with this football star. Yeah. And so maybe having a baby changed Sagar because he used to be pretty apathetic about this. He used to say, I don't really care about Israel-Palestine. Yeah. But, you know, now he goes on and makes the point. This is a form of denialism very akin to Holocaust denialism. So good for him. His heart grew 3 sizes.
We're watching in real time.
I'm backing you up. You should steal this. Zed informed all of us that a key tenet of Holocaust denial is trying to claim that many of the initial victims or purported victims had other, preconditions, and that's part of the reason why they died. And, the war was tough on everybody, and it wasn't.
Okay, so they debunk that article. So that prompts the Free Press to now double down. So the editorial board of the Free Press then writes an article called Journalists Against Journalism. Our critics can call us any name they like. That doesn't change the facts. Again, it is mind-blowing. It is absolutely mind-blowing that they think they have a story in the first place. That you think it's a story in the first place. Oh, the sickest kids are the kids most affected by the famine are the sickest. No shit, that's not a story. It's not at all. It doesn't even approach a story. Last week, the Free Press ran an investigation into a dozen viral photos published by major international media outlets aimed at depicting starvation in Gaza. All 12 pictures featured distressed Gazans, mostly children. All were skin and bones, and all suffered from pre-existing conditions like cerebral palsy. Crucially, that last piece of information was absent from the captions or news stories. It's hard to even read this. They accompanied. In leaving out the context, the outlets presented an incomplete story. Rather than typifying the situation in Gaza right now, these are exceptional cases. I mean, oh, this is a tough one for me. You talk about tough ones for you. This is a tough one for me. We are proud of the report and the reporters who tracked it down. In doing so, Olivia Reingold and Tanya Lukianova performed a public service by asking and answering a simple question. In a moment of widespread charges by international institutions and news outlets about hunger in Gaza, are these photographs representative? More, how is it that journalists fail to scrutinize information coming out of a war zone with an active terrorist group conducting kinetic and information warfare? In a normal time, this is the kind of work that would be praised by our peers for getting to ground truth. Like, in a normal time, we would be praised for this work, but we don't live in normal times. And that is not how some of our colleagues in the news media saw things. To Crystal Ball, host of Breaking Points, our journalism was just so disgusting. Ball's co-host, Sagar Enjeti, chimed in to compare our reporters to Holocaust deniers, saying that a key tenet of Holocaust denial is trying to claim that many of the initial victims or purported victims had other preconditions, and that's part of the reason why they died. Those who care about the truth will note that these children were not presented as the initial victims of anything. They were deceptively promoted to reflect the average Gazan. To suggest otherwise betrays a fleeting relationship with reality. I would not concede that at all. I think it's neither here nor there whether they represent a, typical example of a Gazan child or whether they represent the first victims of famine and starvation. You have to blow the whistle on these things as soon as possible. And that's, of course, like, nobody's suggesting the images were doctored. So those are real kids. Whether they were sick beforehand or not is fucking irrelevant to anybody who's not a complete raving fucking psychotic lunatic. Ball and Enjeti are not alone. Glenn Greenwald, a self-proclaimed free speech absolutist, argued not just for our censorship, but for our trial at The Hague. So this piece, by the way, was printed. Let me just make sure I have this correct. This was on the 25th. Okay, the 25th of August. Okay, so Glenn tweeted this out on the 22nd. He said he was responding to someone who's quoting their article. An anti-Semitic famine libel. The free press of Israel has sunk about as low as you can sink when it comes to atrocity and genocide denialism. They belong on trial at The Hague. Actual journalists at Haaretz today extensively document mass child famine. So then Janine Eunice, who's pro-Palestine, says, I've stayed away from saying journalists, however vile, belong in The Hague, since there is a free speech issue. But because you're the person I admire most and consider the most principled on free speech issues, I'll definitely take your thoughts on the question into consideration. What is your theory as to why this speech is unprotected? I don't think atrocity denial is the same as incitement to genocide. Do you think the free press's work can be deemed to fall in the latter category? To which Glenn replied, on August 23rd, 2 days before this article was printed, you're right. I addressed similar questions yesterday by saying I was speaking hyperbolically and more out of disgust than reason. There are war crimes precedents for prosecuting war propagandists, but I'd likely side with the free speech press views. So 2 days before they ran an article saying he said they belonged at The Hague, he admitted, you know what, I kind of spoke hyperbolically in anger. I wouldn't literally send them to The Hague. So no doubt they saw that and decided to omit the part where he takes it back and says, hey,
Well,
you
that's
know
what they do.
I was blowing off steam. Right, exactly. They ignored that. So even this journalists against journalism piece has a lot of holes in it journalistically, because that is not a complete categorization of what Glenn said, since he issued, not an apology, but an admission that, hey, I was exaggerating, I was blowing off steam, 2 days before they ran this article. This is my favorite. Barack Obama's former deputy national security advisor, Ben Rhodes, whose nickname incidentally in that administration was Hamas. They called Ben Rhodes Hamas in the Obama White House. That's funny. Says we are sociopathic. Ryan Grimm, co-founder of Drop Site News, predicts reporter Olivia Reingold's name will become notorious for a generation. Well, it should. It should. This whole outlet should become notorious for a generation, for more than a generation, for a century. So here is a spicier rebuke from Sagar, who makes the point, hey, you know what? As long as you're making accusations that crimes against children are being exaggerated for propagandistic purposes, let's interrogate some of the free press's reporting about that very same thing with the shoe on the other foot. So this is pretty good stuff from Sagar as well.
Olivia, if you're so concerned about narratives about children that are being used for political purposes, do you think you know where I'm going here, Crystal? I have a little story for you called October 7th and claims about beheaded babies who were microwaved. Olivia, I have a task. Please go and investigate all of the claims about beheaded babies and microwaving and slaughtering and raping, if you would like, because I can guarantee you, Olivia, you will perhaps find that many initial claims turned out to be bullshit and were used for propagandistic purposes to push an agenda on the American and the global community to justify a war of annihilation in Gaza. So, Olivia, that's a great story for you. In fact, you may want to look into Ryan Grimm or any of the other people who have debunked systematically many of the claims that have come out. And so, yes, I believe that since she is so concerned with journalism, that she should then investigate the claims that her own news outlet has made about microwaved and beheaded babies on the day of October 7th. Also, there's a documentary put out by potentially one of your patrons, Sheryl Sandberg, about rape on October 7th. I would love to go through that one with a fine-tooth comb, shall we? And let's look at some of the rapes that have happened since October 7th. And a lot of them that happened in Israeli prison camps that were actually found on video, in fact. Barbarism and gangsterism and behavior of such sort, of which we have multiple documented interests, and yet the ones that were pushed by you were used for propagandistic war purposes. So, Olivia, since I know that you're watching, you can go ahead and take that. You can even clip this if you would like, I guess. Go ahead and...
Man, Fatherhood's doing Sagar well. Pretty based from Sagar and Jetty there. Now, once again, for YouTube, we are not denying that war crimes were committed on October 7th. However, it is a matter of journalistic fact at this point that many of such crimes were exaggerated for propagandistic purposes. And yes, of course, many of those propaganda points were repeated ad nauseum by who? The free press. among many other outlets. They are not uniquely guilty in that, but they are certainly one of many perpetrators. And so, yeah, if you want to talk about using children as propaganda pawns to promote certain points of view, yeah, they are as guilty as anyone else. And in this case, it is just absolutely grotesque that they even thought they had a story to begin with, that they even think it's a story to begin with, that the sickest kids suffer most first in a famine, that they even find that to be worth pointing out is completely deranged and sick and psychotic. Then they double down and attack the people who call them out for it. Dude, this is a hard one for me to talk about, so I'll stop. But it is absolutely disgusting and beneath contempt.
Yeah, what happened to Sagar is the Zionist effect. They have an incredible capacity to turn people against them. This is basically Sagar is now the Dutch soccer player who just wanted to talk about soccer. Who within 1 minute of dealing with a Zionist starts screaming "Free Palestine." That's Sagar at this point because he's dealt with these people. It's like Kariakou. We showed that clip the other night where he talked about some people from the State Department who were tormented by the Israelis while they were in country, cut off their dog's tail, according to Kariakou, for no real reason other than to fuck with them. Just to fuck with them. They are horrible, horrible people. And unless you're really personally dedicated to the project of Zionism, sooner or later, you're not going to want to associate with these people or the claims that they make, especially if anyone's paying attention. Yeah, these people's names are going to live in infamy.
Yes.
Leni Riefenstahl had a very nice career going until she didn't.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yep. And we hope that is the future of the free press. And yeah, there is this whole like background thing where they're being valued at $250 million. Right. So we don't know how much of this is motivated by that, but it is just truly insane. That you wanna get a good boycott going. Like that, if they hire Barry Weiss to be the Zionist czar at CBS, all CBS projects, including Star Trek. That goes for Star Trek too. Come on, you know it sucked for 25 years anyway. Yeah, that is a good idea. I do like that idea quite a bit. All right, folks, let me just bring this up here. It's important to do our scroll right now because we are about to do the final segment of the main show over on YouTube. But if you do join up and become a member, then you have 3 more segments to enjoy on the day because we are doing our special post-game show with a Q&A after party for patrons. DoDissidents.com/Patreon, DoDissidents.com/Substack, or DoDissidents.com/locals. All of those links take you to our member platforms. You could sign up for $5 a month on the platform of your choice. And when you do that, you'll see the last post in the queue, the most recent post in the queue, has a link to a private stream where we will be migrating to after this next segment. We already have 45 of you fine people over there hanging out in the private members only chat. Your support helps us out tremendously. We try to make it as worthwhile as possible with all the different perks, including movie club night and a ad-free replay of every live stream posted the day after it airs. Like I said, because of the unavoidable last-minute film schedule switcheroo, we do have to postpone Movie Club till September, but we will do 2 in September, so we make it up to all of you guys. We apologize about that. We were planning on doing Movie Club this weekend, but with the shoot schedule getting pushed back because of all the illnesses last week, we have to do those instead over this weekend. But your name up in lights here on the scroll. Call in access to every Q&A every Sunday night over on Rumble and the bonus content. You guys are the backbone of the show. We thank you very much for your support. Stoopstein says new logo for Cracker Barrel should be man wearing a barrel wearing a dress. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we should change our logo to match the Cracker Barrel woke logo. That would be good.
I mean, like the two of us leaning on a barrel.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Username says, according to urban legends, where McDonald's competes, the second arch in St. Louis, the portal to hell will open. Yeah, there we go. Yes, thank you for that. EO Shush says, in about 2 years, if a corporate mascot doesn't have a KKK hood on, it will be considered woke. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, EO Shush. Professor Brown Note says, in about 10 years, a generous gesture to make up for the genocide, Israel will launch globally a remake of The Nanny starring Gal Gadot in Fran Drescher's iconic role. Good one. Thank you for that. Eric Suarez says, Byung-Chul Han wrote about it on his book, The Disappearance of Rituals, where he explains how capitalism brings hell of the same. Matrix says, the world is totally like Buttlick Strange. Thank you, Matrix. Lorian Brightbill says, if they were woke, the first thing to go would have been the cracker. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. Caucasian barrel, they would have called it. Eric Suarez, you see, we aren't starving children. We are starving sick children. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like that's another point that they're making. Yeah. No, only the sick ones are dying of starvation for now. Yeah. Just absolutely fucking unhinged and insane. Okay. All right, folks, this is the final segment of the main show, and then the patron post game is after this. So to get access to that, patreon.com/do dissidents. It helps tremendously.
Yeah, and we've also got a very short little bit about my back and forth with Hasbro Hal.
Yes. Russell has a little Hasbro House story to tell for the patrons as well. Hey, why don't we get our like count up to 666 or 589? Let's boost that for the algo today, please, so we can do a 666 before we end the main program. All right, folks. Well, we were apparently a bit prophetic since we chose to do a Ritchie Torres story on the last show because it was revealed that Ritchie Torres has invested in a lot of the military-industrial complex arms dealer stocks while voting for arms shipment after arms shipment to Israel. And so Torres sat down on the Adam Friedland show with Adam Friedland. I knew this would be viral as soon as I saw he was doing it. And so I watched almost the whole thing. I skipped a piece of the midsection to get to the Israel part. But, you know, when you watch this, the first 20 minutes are in a way as awkward as the last 20 minutes because clearly Adam knew he was there to grill him on Zionism, but he couldn't do that right away because then he'd only have a 20-minute show because Torres would get up and leave. So he has to kind of butter him up a little bit in the first 20 minutes, which is so awkward because we all know what he's waiting to do. And so when he finally does it, here is a piece of how it goes down. So for those who don't know, you know, Friedland is a Jewish guy who grew up not just a Jew, but a Zionist and went to Israel when he was 18, expecting to have this great experience. And instead, being a person of conscience, realized, wow, this is much darker than I expected. So here he is telling Ritchie Torres about that experience, and you can see how unmoved Torres is, just psychotically unmoved by what he's saying.
Hatred of Jewish people has, I think hatred of Jewish people has exploded in this country. And I don't think I think it's because it's of our support of what looks to be an absolute brutality. And I think that
you think that's a justification for anti-Semitism?
Here's the thing.
You think Israeli government policy is a justification for anti-Semitism? My view is there's no justification for anti-Semitism.
I think that
there's zero justification for anti-Semitism.
Okay, you're deflecting again.
I'm not deflecting. That's my position.
What does it look like to have a flag with a Jewish star and I'm Jewish, and for kids to be starving right now? Why is my government? I don't want to do this fight. Let's not do like a yelling at each other thing. I really just, for me, I had the experience of.
It just sounds like you're justifying anti-Semitism, which making me feel.
Are you crazy right now?
Okay, so before this part of the conversation, Torres is telling a story, which I did not see covered anywhere, incidentally, of some campus protesters banging on the door of a Jewish restaurant while people were inside. Again, I didn't see any of this. You'd think I would, being as tuned in as I was. But that's what he is talking about. He's talking about cases where the protests get a
No,
little
no,
out.
no. It turns out they were trying to get an order of matzo brie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's all it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Why would I do that? You're doing the I'm Hamas thing?
I'm not saying
it's
you're
not
Hamas,
a winner.
but I'm not. I think there should be.
We'll do a different tack.
Israeli government policy should have no bearing on. If you have disagreements with the Israeli government, you should voice your criticism of the Israeli government. But there is no justification for intimidation or harassment against American Jews.
Okay, so he's being so incredibly slimy right away, as if Ritchie Torres is not, Exhibit A for people who conflate criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. Right. Now, I go further than to criticize the Israeli government. I think the Israeli government is an outgrowth of a very sick society. But even for people who don't take it that far, when they criticize the actions of Israel, of course, Ritchie Torres is right there to call them an anti-Semite. As he's blocked most people who engage with him online with that point of view because of that. So it's just incredibly dishonest framing right from jump.
I'm telling you as a Jew right now that we are receiving a lot more hate because of what the people with a flag that has a Jewish star on are doing to other people right now. I'm telling you, as a Jewish person, how painful it is for us to say, and it hurts my stomach to say this, and you're going to say, I disagree, that this is a genocide. And that hurts to say that a Jew could do that. It hurts because we grew up with learning about what hatred is. We grew up learning about this. And the same year the State of Israel was established, in 1948, the world saw the Holocaust, and they established standards for what a genocide is. It was the same year. And the world said that this shouldn't be a thing that happens. And I just wonder, it doesn't make sense to me, I don't know, it doesn't track to me why there's this fixation with kids at a school and two examples of people at a restaurant that there was banging.
Two examples. I mean, there are surveys on it. Read the ADL surveys on it.
Read the ADL surveys on it. Yeah, that's a good citation there. So what you're about to see here is, and this is why I think this went as viral as it did, because Ritchie Torres, in the run up to this portion of the interview, talks about how when he was young, he grew up, underprivileged, and the first trip abroad he ever made was to Israel, and how that made this big impact on him. And none of us have ever bought that. We always just said, you know what, this guy is just bought and paid for. 1,004,907,402 reasons for his support for Israel. And so now you have a Jewish guy explaining that this genocide has only made anti-Semitism a worse problem, because when ordinary people see genocide being committed in the name or under the banner of a flag with a Star of David on it, that inspires anti-Semitism. So you would think if Ritchie Torres was as moved by his experience to Israel and as invested and as connected to the Jewish experience and the Jewish struggle, you'd think he would have some empathy for what this Jewish guy is telling him about how this is making anti-Semitism worse. But that's not the way this goes.
It's hard for me to talk about this in public because you're being a dick. That's mean.
No. I'm not being mean. I'm just clear it's an emotional topic.
All right, I'll share with you what happened.
I'm not.
I lived there.
I don't intend to be mean. So.
Sir, I lived there when I was 18, and I grew up a Zionist. And we were told, and our whole community in this country is told, that we have to defend Israel and love Israel because it will stop at the Holocaust. It will stop another Holocaust from happening. And my dad was born in 1951. That was 6 years after these atrocities. His friends' parents, he knew these people that had been through this hell, these skeletons. And it terrified us. And the understanding in our community is that we have to defend Israel. But I lived there, and I went to a settlement at the end of my year there, and I looked down a hill, at a Palestinian village, and I saw how they lived, and I turned back and I looked at the settlement and saw how they lived. And people live in a world where they're demeaned and dehumanized and surveilled constantly by people and this isn't in Gaza, by people in SWAT team outfits with semi-automatic weapons, and that's what the world is seeing. And you keep telling me that the problem is someone's getting yelled at a restaurant? I'm sorry.
You're conflating two different issues. So I don't
Please,
understand.
please. Me saying this to you right now will hurt people in my own family, okay? Because this is a very important thing to us. And the fact that I still fucking care about being Jewish is embarrassing. I should just be a guy. But this feels like a stain on our history. And it feels like it's changed what being Jewish is. Because what being Jewish is isn't Israel. Judaism has existed for 4,000 years. This is a country for 75 years. You know?
Exactly. And you could see how cornered Torres feels by that. Because, I'm supposed to be really committed and really invested in Judaism and in the plight and struggle of Jewish people, and now he's explaining how actually, just as a matter of sheer mathematics, Judaism transcends Israel by, almost 4,000 years.
Like, it is the oldest, one of the oldest monotheistic religions. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hatred. People in my life are going to be mad at me about this, but I'm saying this because I am Jewish. And I don't understand why you would be.
Look, how you define.
I want to have.
I feel like I'm here to be lectured, not.
Shut up. That's not nice.
Shut up. I love that. Shut up is right. How is this for a lecture? How is that for a lecture? You could take $1.5 million from AIPAC, but you can't sit through a 5-minute story from an actual Jewish guy who's clearly very hurt by this. You could see he's almost choked up talking about it. You can't just sit there and absorb that respectfully without complaining that you're being lectured. No, that's a lecture. You'll take $1.5 million from these murderers. That's not a lecture. But now you are put upon that he took 5 minutes of your time to explain why he is as upset by this as he is.
Jews, but more poor than others.
No one's saying any.
What happened? You went to the beach in Israel? What? You went to a restaurant or something?
No.
A nice restaurant?
No.
Like, listen.
Never been to the Tel Aviv Pride Parade. So
this is the year 2025.
Yeah.
The world is seeing something that looks terrible, and it's being done in my name, and I don't know what to do.
But the war began on October 7th.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
You're
when Hamas systematically murdered and made. You want.
Okay.
Okay. Now they get into that debate. You can we've heard that version of the debate 1 million times. We know how we feel about that. We'll go to some of the comments. This was the top comment on this YouTube video with 2,300 likes. Ritchie responding, "I feel like I'm being lectured while Adam is choking up about his identity just filled me with indescribable rage." Yes. Don't blame you. Sammy Gold here says, "Those tears with Adam Friedland are real. I experience these feelings too. Thousands of other young Jews feel the same. Despicable that the only place we see these feelings explicated is in a comedy show hosted by a dude from a podcast named Come Town." That's right. JB says, "Ritchie Torres is so drunk off that Zionist cash that he can't see straight. His heart won't allow it. This guy is basically talking to a genocide-supporting brick wall." Exactly. Cassie Pritchard says, "This is so effective because I think it's how so many of us wish we could talk to the people in charge, not through the protocol and artificiality of interview or debate, but with an honest, baffled plea to exhibit some humanity. Just be a fucking human, man." And Torres refuses. Exactly. This went so bad that Friedland couldn't even find a rap point to end the interview. They just had to say, "You know what? This isn't working. Let's stop." And then afterwards, they kept the cameras rolling. And on top of all this, Torres complains that he was sandbagged into talking about this. So let's take a clip of this. This is from the very end.
This is exhausting. Why are we still having this interview? This is exhausting. I'm sweating.
We can end the interview.
The AC's on. I'm just trying to find a button to shake your hand, dude. I don't want to fucking do this.
Dude, we could have talked about so much of that. No, I think you had an agenda to speak about this.
Shut the
I didn't have an agenda.
I really did.
It's your.
I think you had an agenda.
I don't want to
speak about this.
fucking do this.
No, I think you had an agenda to speak about this. I really did.
Didn't have an agenda.
I really did.
It's your number one topic.
It's not my number one topic. It's just not.
It is your.
It's not my number one topic. It's
From
not
what
my
I
number.
saw.
Well, then I'm
from
happy
what I
that
saw, from what
I was not
researched.
elected on Israel. You don't get elected in the South Bronx and the
I'm
Northeast
not
Bronx.
trying to make you feel bad or like.
No, but I just don't think you know what you're talking about.
He doesn't think he knows what he's talking about. The Jewish guy who grew up a Zionist and then went to Israel and deprogrammed himself through his own experience. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You, Ritchie Torres, who went there once as a teenager, I guess, or however old you were, and then got bribed into supporting Israel. No, you know what you're talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's what a slimeball Ritchie Torres is. That he can look at a guy like that, telling a story like that, and not only be unmoved, but to complain he's being lectured and then bitch at him for bringing it up after the interview. I feel you had an agenda to bring this up. What, you're not allowed to question someone's support for Israel, especially in the context of it coming out. I don't know when they recorded this. Maybe it was before it came out, that the guy was investing in the military-industrial complex while voting to send arms to Israel. Well, this is a nice bump for our friend Jose Vega, who's running against Ritchie Torres, that this went viral right now on the heels of that expose about his investments in, I think it was Northrop Grumman, or maybe one other. But yeah, that's who he is. That's who he is. You know, everything we see from him just confirms our initial take, which is that this guy knows nothing or cares nothing about what he speaks. He only knows and cares who pays him, and that to me is evidence to support that theory.
Yeah, this is not an argument for rich people in government, but it is a sad fact of politics in a society where getting into public office is so dependent on getting enormous amounts of money from people. Very often, the people who are not of the standard straight white guy identity group, they're very often the most corrupt, because how do you get that access to that money without being servile to somebody who sees you as a good avatar for their agenda? This is why there are plenty of great black women in this country. So why do you end up with Kamala Harris? That's why. Because only somebody like that would get the funding and the backing. Nobody with integrity is going to get that support coming from that background. I remember people very often, when Hillary was running against Bernie, would get very angry and say, well, she can't act like that. A woman can't act like that. Now, first of all, I think that's a terrible argument to make, because you're saying that women can't have integrity in politics. But there is an underlying truth to what they're saying, that people who are not of the standard issue straight white male identity, they're almost the most corruptible. And this is the whole Democratic Party's status quo, really, particularly over the last couple decades, and particularly over the last decade, is to hide behind these people's identities. They love a guy like Obama, man. Then they can, Citibank can pick his cabinet, and then they can call you a racist if you say anything about it. So you look at a guy, your mute is on. You look at a guy like Ritchie Torres coming from the projects in the Bronx, would have been very hard, if not impossible, maybe even almost impossible, for him to come out of that background and get where he got without some kind of patron. And the easiest patron to get is AIPAC, man. AIPAC will throw money pretty much at anybody who runs cover for them. Black, Puerto Rican, gay dude, that fits their whole agenda of, look, you go to Israel, you can fuck a guy in the alley. Nobody cares. We are so liberal and Western, not like the Arab country. They throw you off a building if you fuck your boyfriend in the alley.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Nick was talking about this too, on RBN that the system kind of filters out people with integrity because they don't get that hand
Right.
up, and people from communities who disproportionately need a hand up into that world or an inroad into that world, they don't get that arm extended to them unless they give a lot up.
Unless that
Right.
right.
And
Right,
the argument
exactly.
with Hillary Clinton about a woman, well, she has to act that way. She's a woman. Okay, so what kind of feminist statement is it to say that a woman cannot become president unless they mimic all the worst qualities of men? They have to
Right.
be more warlike than
Right.
the man to prove that they're more manly than a man. Okay, well, at that point, then what is feminist about this? How is this a victory for women if you have to
Exactly.
imitate the worst qualities of the opposite sex in order to gain power? Right? At that
Yeah,
point, it's no
and
longer a feminist victory.
yeah, and you also have to remember that argument is often made broadly about all identity groups that are not like straight white men. But it's a really undermining argument to make because you're basically saying vote for these people on principle, but you're going to get a bad outcome because they can't afford to actually take stands. So please vote for the weaker candidate who's going to be less likely to represent your interests. It's an awful argument to make, but part of the complexity of this argument is it very often does prove to be true. That's the I forget his name, the Native American vice president helped to usher in horrific legislation for Native Americans. That's what he's there for. That's what he was there for. This is going back 100 years. They were playing that game of hiding behind someone of that identity in order to pass policies that would destroy their own community. These are the people who make it inside of that system. Look at all of these. I'm doing research for the interview I'm going to be doing with the chairman on Sunday. And I'm looking at the history of Black Panthers and activists, Bobby Rush, who was a co-founder of the Black Panthers in Chicago with Fred Hampton. He went on to be a big Kamala supporter. And, would he have been in Congress all of those years if he hadn't been he was a big Democrat Party insider for most of his career. If he had stayed a radical, he'd be in the neighborhoods doing community organizing. He never would have gotten into the halls of power if he had not shifted his politics that way. You're still muted.
Sorry, they're doing something outside. That's loud. Some kind of apartment complex maintenance. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good point. It's definitely a good point. So something that we've observed, and definitely true in Torres's case. All right, we are at 726 likes. All right, folks. So I'm going to leave the Patreon link up. Last call to join the Cool Kids Club over in the members only room. We got 72 filing in over there. We're going to read the rest of our Rumble rants and super chats and then head on over. Before we do that, I just do want to give a quick word from one of our dissident sponsors, Mr. John Koa. He's got a new single out. It's called Just a Little Off the Rails. And the core of the songs on his upcoming album were the rhythm tracks from a collection of live acoustic performances from 2017 to 2020. John was going to release just the solo acoustic tracks, but he didn't feel like releasing music while witnessing the sad state of affairs that we discuss here on the show. So he waited and kept recording, and now he's got a 34-song album coming out. It's a mix of originals and cover tunes, and Just a Little Off the Rails is the first single. It's an autobiographical song, an original of John's, featuring acoustic guitar, bass, vocals, and slide. So you can head on over to his Spotify to check it out. You can also go to dodissidents.com/Koa for a link to all of his socials, and that'll take you to Apple Music, his YouTube channel, or his Spotify, whichever you choose, to take a listen to the new song. Okay. All right. So I'll leave the link up so everybody can get over to Patreon if you haven't become a member yet. Damon Wolf says, main reason the middle class and poor are so easy to manipulate is the scumbags in power are able to keep us in permanent desperation, and we're too naive or just stupid to turn it against them. That's correct. EO Shush says it's not the Mariners organization. It's some dude with a megaphone who yells about Jesus on the sidewalk when people.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Vito P says Free Press has reported that all of the images of destroyed structures in Gaza was of termite damage, not bombs. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you for that, Vito. Let's see here. Edward Campbell says a retweet from Netanyahu should immediately destroy your credibility as anything but a genocidal stenographer. Amen. Rochelle Sevier says accidentally deleted subscriber link. Oh no. How can I get another one? Thanks. Depending on where you're subscribed, just go to the website. So if you're subscribed on Substack, just go to dudissidents.substack.com. And if you're a paid member, you'll see the post right there, and you can click and get the link that way. Same thing for Patreon and locals. Just go to the link itself, dudissidents.com/locals or patreon.com/dudissidents. And you can get it there because it's not just an email. It's actually on a website. So if you deleted it from your email, you can get it off the site. Thanks for the question. Omar Pineda says, Russell, are you going to catch Tracy Letts' Bug with Carrie Coon on Broadway next year? Also, Lindsay Ellis did a great video on Miss Rachel in Gaza. I didn't know Bug was coming to Broadway. Bug is one of my favorite plays.
Neither did I.
I directed a production of Bug. And right after the movie came out, I actually was working PA on a film. I got to drive Michael Shannon around in a car, which was wild because it was before he was really famous. And I've been a huge fan of his since I saw the movie. He did the play originally off Broadway at the Barrow Street Theater. But yeah, no, I'm definitely going to see that if that's on Broadway. That's
I'll check
one of my
that
favorites. Bug is an amazing play, and it would be great for a movie night, but there's a lot of nudity, unfortunately. Anthony Ringett, thanks for the $5. I watched this in the morning and was proud of our gay Adam yes, for articulating the emotional argument in a way I haven't seen yet quite in this way. Yeah, it's probably for the best that Nick Mullen left the show because while Adam was crying, Nick probably would have been calling him gay from off camera and it would have ruined the vibe. Eric Torres, the Torres interview should be titled Interview with a Vampire. Good one. Joseph George, thanks for the $5, says, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. And that was his first mistake. Yeah, exactly. He was much more polite than I'd have been. That is for sure. Alrighty, folks. Well, that is our show for the, I don't want to say that is our show for the commoners, as they say, but that is the public show. We will be continuing after a 5-minute intermission for our paid members. We already got 87 hanging out in the members only chat. So thank you all very much for being here today. We will see you again on Sunday evening after we shoot an all-day interview with Chairman Omali Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party. So we should have more footage for you guys next week because we're going to be shooting some stuff over the weekend because of the delayed schedule, because of all the illness in the air. But we will see everybody again on Sunday. If you're a paid member, head on over to the link in your email right now, and we will continue the show as well as a Q&A over on the Patreon side. If you're not hanging out with the patrons, we will see you on Sunday. Thanks to the mods, thanks to the YouTubers and the Rumblers. Pleasure being here. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.